berries and cream, berries and cream. I'm a little lad who loves berries and cream. Up the octave, go for it.
Hey, and welcome to the Grover Disclosure. I am your co-host, Brian Grover, and I'm here with my wife,
Fran. Ready to chat. I'm trying to fix my mic.
This is our second episode of the Grover Disclosure. Our first one we got pretty good feedback from people that listened to it.
Yeah, we had a couple friends that listened to it all the way through.
Last I checked, I think we had like 39 downloads, so that's better than zero.
It is better than zero. Yay, go us.
I'm 38 of those. I just logged onto my different devices. And
yeah, listen to it like 7 times. Oh, man. Okay, so Brian and I explained last time that on Grover Disclosure, we kind of want to go over our transitions. We've been through a lot of transitions in the last, especially just 10 years of marriage. And so the transition we're talking about today is mine, from being a stay-at-home mom to all of a sudden now going to law school in a few weeks.
And I envision this topic, both of our transitions just in our life, and one that's been so big for you is this transition from thinking you were going to be a stay-at-home mom to now pursuing a professional degree and career.
Yeah, it's been nothing that I expected for myself or even hoped for myself when we first got married.
Yeah, and the story in and of itself is so deep, and there's so many different points, and so we're going to try and keep this episode to one of those specific moments. Do you need help?
Yeah,
this needs to be.
It needs to be tightened right here, maybe? Is that? Oh yeah, okay. It's tighter. Oh, that's what she said. Okay. Are you still recording?
It's funny to talk about that right after we talked about what happens to your body after
cervical
a baby's
ripening.
born.
Oh gosh.
That's a time to shout out. I have another podcast that Fran also joins me on that's a little bit more centered around what I do as a career as an OBGYN and my desires to kind of get more information out there. And that podcast is called Fetal Philosophy.
Yeah, Brian's very good at educating women about what's actually going on in their bodies. He knows a lot more about my body than I do, and it's very helpful to have, and he does a good job of explaining it. And so if you have questions about cervical ripening.
And there's a lot I don't know, especially being as a male OBGYN provider. Something I say to my patients all the time in the clinic is there's Dr. Grover, OBGYN, and then there's Brian. I'm also like a husband and a father. And I most of the time use that when I'm conveying empathy, when somebody's going through something hard. I say, I'm so sorry. I realize this is really hard. And I want you to know that I see that not only as an OB provider, as Dr. Grover, but also as a husband and father myself who's seen a wife kind of go through these things. And so I like to put the spin on it that, there's certain things I'll never understand or never be able to empathize with because I'm a male. But at the same time, I think I have a different perspective maybe to offer at some times. And at the end of the day, I didn't care anything about women's health growing up. I mean, I was just a normal guy. But then I got married, and Fran had a miscarriage, and then I had a daughter, and went through my OBGYN training, and I just really care about it. Mom who's going through menopause, a sister that has chronic discharge. I'll let you guys guess which one it is. I'm not going to throw her under the bus.
Oh my gosh,
but,
you did.
Even
it's 50-50 chance.
That's what I'm saying. You have 50-50 chance.
Ouch.
She's not alone. There's a lot of patients that have that.
No, it's good. It is. It's very nice having you as an OBGYN. It saves me from a lot of anxiety of like what is happening to my body because you just know. It's great.
I didn't always know. This makes me think of the first OBGYN procedure I ever did was as a second-year med student. For those of you who don't know, second-year medical students still haven't done anything. They've just read the books. But they've never been in the hospital other than a little bit of shadowing, but they don't know a lot. And Fran and I were ready to start trying for our second child, and she didn't want to go to the doctor to get her IUD taken out.
Right. I didn't want to. And
I tell people this story and they have no idea what to think about you, that you let me do this. Anyways, I watched a YouTube video or looked it up online, and I went to my toolbox. I got a pair of pliers. I lathered them in hand sanitizer.
Yeah. Sanitize them, hopefully, somehow. Anyway, he pulled my IUD out with those pliers. Don't recommend that, especially as a medical provider. Probably shouldn't tell people that you did that, but here we are.
But it worked, and now we have George, so I guess I'm a good doctor.
The guinea pig.
Maybe I should go into like infertility treatment. That's just like the perfect story segue into like you just have the magic touch.
Wow. Anyway, well, you interrupted the hell out of me just barely, and so that's where we should just name this podcast Bryan Interrupts Fran.
You interrupt me just as much. Anyway, so that's what the point of this episode is going to be, is to talk about one of those specific times and transitions that Fran went to and kind of the trigger there, mostly with her identity and that's what else this podcast is about, is identities. And mostly her identity of a stay-at-home mom and what she saw her future being, to realizing, oh my goodness, I don't think I want to be a stay-at-home mom. I want to work. I want to do this. And so that's the transition that we want to talk about today.
Yeah. Right? A little background, I guess, is that Bryan and I got married in 2013. We were both at BYU. I had like 2 semesters left.
Is it okay if I interrupt you?
It's still an interruption, even if you ask me, yes.
But an important thing to realize is Fran and I grew up, we met in high school, and a lot of people, I'm sure, can relate to this. We grew up in a small conservative community, and it was a great childhood, and I learned a lot of things from it. But we grew up with this understanding and this bred-in idea that our jobs were to get married, to have kids, for me to get a job that could support the family so that Frances could stay at home and be a full-time mom.
Right.
And
nurture and teach my children.
And it wasn't, again, I want to clarify this. It wasn't forced on us. It's not that it was forced on us, but it was very much the status quo, the normal. Just very much the culture of what we grew up in, where it was like that was what was expected. Yes. And so we're going to talk more about that maybe in another episode. Back to our story where we get married, we're young, I'm 23, you're 22. We were married for a couple of years. We kind of got down towards the ends of our graduation, and this is where we're talking about starting a family. And that's kind of where we get to this. And sorry to interrupt you, but I just think the background there is really important, because we're now at this stage in our life. We're like, hey, we're here. We're going to start having a family. We're going to start having kids. Bryan's going to go to medical school, be a doctor, take care of our family financially. And Fran's going to stay at home and have babies and make me sandwiches.
All day. So that was kind of my mindset at the time, right? Getting married, and that's definitely like what I wanted. And I didn't have a passion about anything else, really. I graduated in family studies from BYU. So if that doesn't tell you that I was planning on being a mom, I don't know what would. And I was pregnant with Nora. She was due in December. I was only like 12 weeks pregnant at that time. Come October, I had a baby shower at my mom's house, and my neighbor came up and she was asking, what are you doing for work right now? And I told her, I'm not doing anything. I'm just waiting for this baby to come. And she worked at a family law firm in Provo, and she needed somebody to work as a receptionist. And I might as well kill 2 months before I have my baby and make some money. So I was like, great, I'll come. It was right next to our condo. I could walk to work. It was just the perfect scenario. So I started this job and loved it. Loved the attorneys, loved the staff. They had such a good culture and community, and it was very family oriented, and they knew each other outside of work. It was just a really fun environment to be in. And it was the first time ever that I had found something that I started to become passionate about. And I really didn't know anything about law at all. Wasn't practicing, wasn't writing motions, wasn't doing anything at that time just besides answering phones.
And I remember seeing you at that time. Fran has hard pregnancies, you guys, mentally, and I'm sorry.
No, that's right. I was very pregnant. I was like 7 months pregnant.
She's a mentally resilient person, but pregnancy is really, really hard for her in the sense that you get really bad perinatal depression and anxiety. It's a thing.
Yeah,
it's
really
a diagnosis,
bad.
and she gets it. And a lot of watching her go through that with her pregnancies is a lot of what's putting me in my desires to do what I'm doing in my career. But the thing being is I was able to see that too. As her husband, I remember being in my last semesters at BYU and Fran struggling through this first pregnancy and me not knowing how to help her. And I remember her getting this job and starting this job, and it was almost like she still had her perinatal depression anxiety, but it was like a 9-day difference. It was a 9-day difference. She would go to work and she was happy. And she was motivated and she was excited to get up during the day, and she became more excited and felt more ready for the baby to come. It was a huge transformation just within the first few days she started working at the law firm.
Yeah. And I was only working part-time, and I really enjoyed it. And when they asked if I was coming back, I had never considered even working, and I don't think if they wouldn't have asked, maybe I would have just been like, oh, had my baby, I'm done. But they asked, and I wanted to go back. So I kept working. Fast forward to Nora being 6 months old. I was still working a little bit. Bryan got into the University of Utah Medical School. So we were going up to Salt Lake, moving. And in the back of my head, I was like, I know I like that job. We probably need some kind of income with Bryan going to medical school. Like, we didn't want to completely live off of loans. And so I started looking for a job on KSL. Interviewed at a couple different places and found Brown, Bradshaw, and Moffitt, criminal defense firm up in Salt Lake. If you ever have a DUI, I do recommend. They're awesome.
I'm so excited to talk about this. And for the rest of this episode, just so that you kind of know where this is going, we're going to kind of talk about Brad Bradshaw Moffitt.
Yeah.
What it meant for Fran. Like, this is one of those moments. Getting this job for Fran is one of the moments that changed everything
absolutely
about her
changed
life,
my life,
about our lives. And so I'm so excited to hear and kind of dissect, and we're going to kind of talk about your experience at Brown Bradshaw.
I should disclaim, too, that I was only wanting to work part-time, and so I had Bryan watching Nora until noon every day while he's in medical school. He had classes in the afternoon, so he's watching Nora in the morning while I go to work. And we did that for an entire semester until we had childcare.
And it was hard. It was my first year of med school.
I can't believe you did that. There's no way I would, going to law school now, and if you asked me, like, oh, you have to be home half the day with the kids and we don't have childcare, I'd be like, I'm not doing that. Good for you.
It was intimidating because, you were Monday through Thursday or Monday through Friday. Monday through Thursday. Were you Monday through Friday till noon? I don't remember. But either way, what I would do is I'd get up every day. I would study for about an hour, and then Fran would go to work, and I would take care of Nora from 8 a.m. till noon.
Right.
And then Fran would come home from work. I'd go immediately to class. I'd have 4 hours of class every day until 5 p.m. So I would get out of med school at 5 p.m. every day, and I hadn't studied at all.
Oh, my gosh.
I was tired. I was hungry. I'd hit the gym.
So sorry I did that to you.
No, but that's what this whole podcast is going to be about, is you didn't do that to me. Like, that's not the mentality, right?
Yeah.
And I remember seeing what that first job did for Fran when she was pregnant, and her motivation, and how much more motivated she was as an individual, and how much that blessed my life and blessed our daughter's life. That I remember doing that with Nora, and there were times it was really stressful and I was like, what am I doing? But the vast majority of those times, I just kept having this overwhelming sense of this is worth it.
Yeah.
Because at that point, it wasn't just, some of it was selfish. I saw how much better my life got when I had a partner that was motivated and working and giving back to society and being a mom and working out and like doing all these things to become an awesome person. It lifted me up and it made me want to be better. And I saw that, and I saw how it blessed our family. And so the first thing I just want to say is I don't view it as that necessarily, that you did that to me, because again, that's what we're talking about here in a very kind of fair play kind of mindset.
Right.
But then also it was what was best for me. And I believe that now with you going to law school. It's going to be hard, but it is best not only for you, but it's going to bless my life more, and it's going to bless our kids' lives more for lots of reasons.
I agree. Now that we're on like the opposite side of that, where a mentality about me working has completely changed. Yes, I see it only as a positive in our life. But at first it was like,
it was a lot.
I can't believe I'm doing this. So Brown, Bradshaw, and Moffitt, the best attorneys I have ever worked for. Sorry, Scott. They were amazing. And this is only criminal defense. They're a boutique law firm, not a big law firm. They only do criminal defense.
What does that mean too? Like, I guess.
So a boutique law firm is usually just
and also
a
not
niche.
boutique, more like criminal defense. Like what do criminal defense attorneys do?
Defend criminals. So, I mean, if you are arrested or have any kind of criminal charge, you're going to get prosecuted by the city or the state or whatever jurisdiction you're arrested in.
I know that word.
Jurisdiction.
Uh-huh.
I know some of these words.
I know some of these words.
So it'll
Good
always
burger.
be like,
That's a good burger quote.
it'll be like Scottsdale v. Grover. Like it's always going to be the city or the state against you on a criminal charge. It's the government or the people of the state that you're going up against for committing some kind of crime. And everyone has a right to an attorney in a criminal proceeding. And so you can get like a public defender that is paid for you by the state, by government dollars, or if you have a pretty big case or something that is life altering, like you're accused of murdering your wife and you're going to go to prison for 25 years to life, you probably want to pay for somebody to do a good job, right? So they did a lot of cases like that. We did everything from DUIs to big murder trials to federal cases, federal drug crime cases. And when I first started working, we were going towards a murder trial.
Murder.
I don't want to dive into like all the technicalities of it, but Conrad Truman, you can look up his case on like KSL. He was arrested and charged with murdering his wife. Law cases take a long time. If you're arrested for murder, you're not going to have trial for like 2 years. So buckle up and have fun in county jail. So he was charged. He had a trial and was found guilty. There were issues with evidence in the case and measurements in the case that our attorneys wrote a motion for to grant him a second trial, which he was granted. And so they were preparing for that, for his second trial, which for Conrad Truman, the PTSD of going through one trial, let alone two, especially for something you did not do, he's hopefully seeing a therapist, because that is trauma right there. Anyway, second trial is what we're working on, and it was in Utah County.
So just to clarify, so he shot his wife, killed her. He's in jail.
He did not shoot. Okay, hold on. He did not shoot his wife and kill her.
But where we're at in the story, he did shoot his wife.
He was accused of.
Stop.
Allegedly shot his wife. I hate when you talk about people like they're guilty.
See what I live with?
Innocent until proven guilty.
Can you imagine?
He allegedly shot his wife and killed her.
Okay, but he had been cursed with this, charged with this.
Cursed. Like Harry Potter.
We watched Harry Potter last night. So he's been laden with this
charge of
So he's
first
sitting
degree
in
murder.
prison for killing his wife. He's in prison for killing his wife.
Yes, he was found guilty from this first
He's
trial.
like, I didn't fucking do it. I didn't effing do it.
Right.
And which is what everyone says. But then your law firm.
It's not what everyone says.
But your law firm, right, was like, okay, yeah, maybe he didn't do it. And so they reopened the trial to do it all over again and be like.
Yeah. And like, but you don't like reopen a trial. You have to like write motions and have it granted by the court.
But I don't.
It is. I'm just saying to explain how badass these attorneys are. Like, it's hard work. You have to have like amazing arguments in your motion for a court to grant a second trial. Like that doesn't come around very often. Like that's hard to get done. Anyway,
but that's where we're at. Is this?
So that's
now.
Where we're at.
They granted it. They said yes, you may try again to convince us that he didn't kill his wife.
It's all this evidence from years and years and years ago that is being retried, and the cops are being re-questioned, and it's a 2-week murder trial. This happened in Utah County. Some of the evidence.
And this, just to clarify, again, like this is when she signed on Brown, Bradshaw, and Moffitt. At this point,
they were about to go to trial. They were like a month away. With this
Conrad Truman case, Fran had no idea about criminal defense. She didn't know she liked it. Her only experience had been in family law.
Right. So I went into this being like we're defending a murderer? I had a little bit of a complex of like, is it okay for me to defend criminals? Is that all right? Morally? Anyway, I've learned a lot since then. This happened in Utah County. They lived in Provo, I think, when his wife died, and he allegedly killed her. And so obviously it's going to be tried at the 4th District Court in Provo. On the night that she died, they were both drinking. He called 911, and on the phone call, he's spewing F words. He's devastated. Get fucking down here. Get down here now. My wife's on the ground. What are you fucking doing? I need someone to help her. Scary. Like, he's so scared. His wife is in a pile, just a pool of blood in their kitchen. So you get Utah County, which is very conservative. And our attorneys are worried because he had alcohol in his system. He's spewing F words on the phone call. And they don't want a jury that is going to convict him because they think he's a bad person just for swearing or just for drinking alcohol.
Right, because you and I both that grew up in Utah County know people, or I don't know if I could name anyone specifically, but we could definitely imagine a world where somebody's sitting there. I could name someone
specifically, myself. That's the point, is that it was like, at that time, I was like, I probably would think that he was bad.
Just based off the fact that he's drinking and
he's spewing F words.
And using F words.
Right.
Like just those two in conjunction were.
Yes, there's some bias there automatically, which is what our attorneys were worried about. They hired me for some reason, thought I had some kind of rationale or something, and they knew I was a member of the church and I was from Utah County. And Mark Moffitt, one of the attorneys that was working on this case, he is a legend, had me come in to our conference room, and he said, Fran, trying this case in Utah County scares the hell out of me. And I told him that I could see why. I totally understood why he would be scared of that. But I told him my personal experiences with family and with brothers and with exposure to different ideas and people, and, you know, understanding that saying some swear words and drinking a little bit of alcohol does not mean that you killed your wife. And when I explained that to him, he was like, "Okay, you're coming down. You're going to come help us pick the jury."
You're a Jack Mormon. Congratulations.
I was like, whoa, wait, what? He was like, yeah, tomorrow morning you're coming down to Provo.
Shut up. So he just like your first day on the job, basically, or one of your first days.
Yeah, I was like 2 weeks there, and he was like, "You're picking
Just
the jury
lawyered
with
you
us."
into trying to figure out if you were like what kind of.
And
it's
I was like, "I don't even own a blazer."
It's like when you meet. It's when you're Mormon and you meet other Mormons, you have to like throw out a couple things to see like how Mormon your
Mormon they are.
new Mormon acquaintances are. So you have to like kind of try the water. And I mean, Mark's
Be
not
like,
Mormon.
"I got something at Starbucks."
But so he's like the same.
Trying to
Hot
test
chocolate.
the
It was
waters.
hot chocolate. It was hot chocolate. Pink drink. No, but kind of saying that he kind of did that to you, where he wanted to get to know you. He was like, "Can we use her as an asset? Is she an open-minded thinking Mormon to some extent, or has some capability to do that?"
Well, I remember being
you passed the
terrified
test.
because right before I had this conversation, Mark and Jim Bradshaw, another badass,
Legend.
are arguing in the conference room about this jury, and they have questionnaires that all the jury has filled out, and they're reading them, and they're worried about the bias of Utah County, and they're back and forth and I hear Jim say something like, "Well, you have a Utah County native in the office, go get her." And I was like up at the front desk, just like trying to answer phones and mind my own business, and I got pulled into the conference room.
That is crazy.
I was terrified.
Yeah.
I was so scared to talk to Mark.
Yeah.
So I got selected to come select the jury. We sat in voir dire, which is, it's Latin for truth telling, which is all the potential jurors came into the judge's chambers and were asked questions.
The chambers. You and all your big words. You give me shit for using like medical words, and
and this
law is even worse.
Yeah, it is. That's true. The wording is terrible. So how they do, I don't have to go totally into the weeds of this, but how they pick a jury is they do voir dire. Sometimes they'll do it in front of everybody. They'll do it in front of all the jurors, but they really wanted the potential jurors to be very honest. So they put them just in chambers, just with opposing counsel and us writing notes, talking to them individually. And it gave us the opportunity to kind of weed out their opinions about alcohol, drinking alcohol, swearing, their background. Do they have any bias about cops? Some people have a bias that they automatically believe that cops are more truthful and that they'll take their opinion over another witness who's not in some kind of authority like that. Those are all kind of things that you want to weed out of your potential jurors.
You just want people that are like, and all of us are biased, but it's just trying to find the people that are the least biased.
Yes.
So this doesn't have
critical thinkers.
And that's the thing too, is this has nothing to do with Mormonism. This has everything to do with trying to find people who weren't isolated in their beliefs, or who were more open to other ways of thinking or living, or had been exposed to those things in the very least.
Well, there's an entire career built around selecting juries, just because depending on your case, you may want some people that are a little bit more biased
so good
than
at
others.
Because you know what I was good at? Like when we were on the playground growing up and you'd have to pick people for your basketball team. You'd get the two captains. You'd be like, I pick him. I was so good at that.
You could be good at picking a jury.
It
depends on your case though, right? Because if you just want somebody that's going to look at all the evidence, to critically think about it, and if there is reasonable doubt in a criminal case, if there's reasonable doubt that they did it, then you have to find them not guilty. And
got it.
So that's what we wanted out of our jury. And I felt really good about the jury that was selected. And Annie and Mark had my notes, and there were people that they wanted that I was like, absolutely not. Do not put them on your jury. And we felt like we had a good group by the end of it.
Well, and it happens. I went to the first couple of days of jury duty, and they had us go around the room and introduce ourselves. And this was in Provo, and 3 or 4 people introduced themselves by saying that their favorite book was the Book of Mormon.
Yeah, that would probably be somebody that I would.
And it's not because the Book of Mormon's great. I mean, I have a tattoo on my arm that's a symbol from the Book of Mormon, and it's a great book and like teaches some great principles and things. But
Yeah.
the fact that
But you don't want the spirituality aspect clouding your jury's judgment. For example, there was a lady who we asked, if you feel like there's some reasonable doubt there, what are you going to do to make that decision? And she was like, I would probably pray about it. And it's not that I'm against prayer, especially at the time, like I very much an advocate of prayer, but like that is not the place that you want people using prayer to make their decisions.
Well, that's where they're going to be influenced by the fact, again, going back to the things like he's drinking and the feelings
right.
and that is going to be so clouded in your judgment.
And you want critical, only looking at evidence, no bias. And it's hard to find a good jury that'll do that. So 2 weeks of trial went by and he was found not guilty by this jury. And I have been chasing that high ever since.
She was pumped. I was
excited. Reading the live tweets from some court reporter for KSL, and when I saw that not guilty, I was like, career decision made. I'm going to be an attorney. It was amazing. I was so happy for him. It's, in my opinion, one of the absolute worst things that can ever happen to you is to be convicted of something that you did not do and have anything more than a 5-year sentence in prison for something you did not do.
Well, any time in prison would suck, but then you imagine these people that get
it'll ruin your life. It'll ruin it if you get out and you still have that criminal charge on you that you didn't do. It affects your job prospects from now until eternity.
Well, also what happens if not everybody's Wes Watson and like goes through prison and turns it into a business when he gets out. Most people go through prison and come out depressed, anxious.
Yeah, and back in the system if they're hanging around people that are associated with the people that they were associated with in prison, it's the worst thing that can happen to someone. So it made me want to go to law school. And the attorneys that I work for used to go to RMIC, Rocky Mountain Innocence Center, which is primarily a nonprofit that helps people that were wrongly convicted get out of prison. There are a lot of... The Innocence Project is one of the big, well-known ones around the country. And we used to go to the breakfast that they held at the Little America in Salt Lake. And they had people that had been wrongly convicted. There was a guy that had been in prison for 18 years for being convicted of a murder that he did not commit. 18 years. Like, he went in as a child. He was 19, I think. It was so inspiring to hear their stories and so inspiring to hear the attorneys' work that they put in to getting people out and the passion that they had for those. And that's primarily where I would like to spend at least like pro bono and nonprofit time, is working on those kind of cases.
That's really cool. Do you think there's any similarities between why you like helping criminals and just kind of your own journey out of what you thought you were supposed to be, and now making this decision that not only are you going to work while I'm in med school, but you actually are realizing you want to be an attorney?
Yes, but not so much as like a redemption story as it is, I had very much a victim mentality, I think. As a stay-at-home mom, I just fed my identity into you. So I'm a doctor's wife. My career and identity as a person is very much wrapped into what my husband does and what his job is.
That was everything. My job, my school, church callings, like my jobs at church.
So a lot of things were being done to me. And it was just, my kids are doing things to me, and I'm moving around because of Brian's job, and taking hold of my own life is very much what someone who does or does not commit a crime, someone who's been through the justice system, you get a lot of stuff done to you without your choice. And at the end of it, when you come out, you have to choose to start making your own decisions and like not letting your past and being an actual victim just make you not live your life. So yeah, I mean, I do kind of identify with it, and I like the underdog. And the ultimate underdog is someone who's actually done something wrong. The underdog isn't always the victim. Nobody wants to root for the person who actually did the crime, which is one of the things that the attorney said to me when I interviewed for that job. That's what Annie said to me, is that's why she did criminal defense. So she was like, these are the real underdogs. And I'll always remember her saying that.
That's really cool. I really like that.
So basically that was the moment, is that Conrad Truman case and him being found not guilty, and me finding a passion and an identity in that was outside of Brian going to med school, was outside of having 2 kids and eventually having 3 kids. I have my own identity. I have something that I'm super passionate about, that I like learning about, that yes, I'll hopefully make some money, and there is obviously perks to having a 2-income household, or there hopefully will be, but it gives me life. It fulfills me. It makes me feel like more of me. And the only disclaimer that I want to give on that is that some people do feel like them as stay-at-home moms. We are all so different, and we all want so many different things and are fulfilled by so many different things. And being a full stay-at-home mom all the time was not fulfilling to me. And I used to feel really guilty for that, but it's actually turned into something that I value, because now my kids, when they're at daycare, they are around the people that are fulfilled by being with little kids. And people can feel that passion and love that they give off to people. And it may not be their mom that they're with, but George knows all of his ABCs, and he can count to 100, and it's not because of me. It's because of Miss Nikki. And so me finding my own identity has helped my kids find their own identity, and being able to listen to other adults and to learn and to grow more than they would if they were home with me.
Yeah.
And so it's a village. My identity has turned into me feeling so fulfilled and so lucky to have so many people caring about my kids, and it not just being on me.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Conrad Truman killing his wife saved your life.
Not to discount his trauma or anything. But for real.
Thanks for joining us on the Grover Disclosure. It was fun to hear a little bit more about Fran's decision to become a lawyer. So, yeah, we'll see you next time. Bye.